All right, hey everybody, welcome to this deep dive. We are going to
Oh,
talk about stinging insects in Tennessee.
okay.
You guys wanted to know more about this, and we found some great info on the Critter Wranglers website.
All right.
They're a local pest control company, and we're not just going to be talking about the fear of stings and all that. We're
Right.
going to, try to appreciate these creatures, learn to live in harmony. So that's kind of our mission today.
Yeah, I'm all about that balance, nature
Yeah.
and stinging insects. They kind of have a bad rep, but they're really important.
Yeah, for sure. So let's just get right into it. What kind of stinging insects are we dealing with here in Tennessee?
Yeah.
Critter wranglers, they mentioned the usual suspects like, bees, wasps, hornets.
Right.
But there were a few that I was actually surprised by.
Yeah, well, like ground nesting bees, you ever heard of those?
Ground nesting bees.
Yeah, they're solitary bees. They like to make their homes in the ground.
Okay.
They're really important pollinators, especially for like wildflowers.
So wait a minute. I'm walking through a field, just minding my own business, and I could be like stepping on a bee's house.
Well, you could be, yeah, so
Da-da.
unlike honeybees or ground nesting bees are roners. They dig these little burrows in the soil usually where there's not a ton of plants.
Okay.
And they're pretty docile. They're not going to sting you unless they feel threatened, but, maybe don't walk barefoot through a field
Yeah.
or be careful when you're gardening.
Okay, that's good advice. What about mud dubbers? I've always thought those mud nests were so cool.
Yeah.
But are they actually harmless?
Well, muddaubers are kind of unique. They're the only wasp that paralyzes its prey before sealing it in the nest. So
Oh.
they hunt spiders.
Okay.
They paralyze them with their sting, and then they stuff them into those little mud tubes for their larvae to feed on.
So it's like a little horror movie.
Kind of, yeah. It's a little nursery, but for baby wasps.
Yeah, filled with spiders. That's wild.
Yeah, but it just shows how diverse and complex these creatures are.
For sure.
Each species is different. They have no own adaptations and behaviors.
Totally.
And the more we learn about them, the more we appreciate them.
I totally agree. Okay, so we've got all these different stingers out there, but we have to talk about the sting themselves.
Of course.
Critter wranglers, they say over 500,000 people end up in the ER every year because of stings.
Wow.
I gotta say, that's kind of scary.
Yeah, stings can be painful. For some people, they can even be life-threatening.
Yeah.
It really all comes down to the venom.
Right? Venom, that's the stuff that makes the stings hurt so bad. But why? How does it work?
Well, venom is basically a mix of different chemicals, and it's different depending on the species,
Okay.
but it's meant to cause pain and inflammation. Some venoms have enzymes that break down tissue, others attack your nervous system.
So it's not just pain, it's like your whole body.
Yeah, it's their defense mechanism
Right.
to protect themselves or their colony.
Okay, so the website also mentions allergic reactions. They say it's super important to know if you're allergic.
Absolutely. Most people will just have some pain and swelling after a sting,
Yeah.
but some people have really severe allergic reactions.
And that's when it can get dangerous.
Exactly.
Like anaphylactic shock.
Right, your throat closes up, you can't breathe, your blood pressure drops. It's really serious.
You need to get help right away.
Absolutely. If you know you're allergic, you should always carry an EpiPen.
For sure.
And if you do get stung and start having a reaction, call 911 immediately.
Yeah, we've got all this diversity, all this venom. It's a lot to think about.
Yeah, it is.
But before we get too overwhelmed, let's talk about critter wranglers and how they deal with all of this.
Yeah, they seem to have a really good philosophy about it. It's all about respect and understanding.
Yeah, and they specialize in humane removal and relocation whenever possible.
Right.
And they're eco-friendly, which I love. They're not about wiping out these insects. It's about coexisting peacefully.
Yeah, exactly.
But how do they actually do it? How do they remove these stinging insects safely?
Well, they have trained technicians who really know these insects.
Okay.
They understand their behavior and habits. They use special equipment and protective gear.
Oh, okay.
So they can remove nests safely and relocate the insects to a better place.
So it's not just like they're going in there with a can of bug spray.
Oh, no.
They're actually trying to understand the insects and find a good solution.
Yeah, a solution that works for both people and the environment.
I like that. Okay, so they're removing the nests, but what about the nests themselves? Where are they?
Oh, they can be anywhere. Critter wranglers, they say you might find them in attics, crawl spaces, under decks,
Okay.
in sheds,
All right.
even inside walls.
Inside walls.
Yeah.
You're telling me there could be a whole nest of stinging insects living in my house right now?
Well, it's possible, but don't panic.
Oh, okay.
Critter wranglers, they give some tips on how to spot an infestation. You might hear buzzing sounds.
Yeah.
Or see the insects coming and going. You might even find shed wings or droppings.
Okay, so I need to be on the lookout for anything suspicious.
Exactly.
But what happens if I do find a nest? What do I do?
Do not try to remove it yourself.
Okay.
Especially if it's yellow jackets or hornets.
Yeah.
It can be really dangerous.
Okay, no DIY nest removal, but what should I do then?
Call the professionals. Let them handle it.
Okay.
They have the experience and the equipment to do it safely.
Right, before we move on, I want to go back to something you mentioned earlier about respecting these insects.
Right.
It's easy to be scared of them,
Yeah.
but it's important to remember that they're not out to get us.
Yeah, they actually do a lot of good,
Right.
like pollination. Without bees and other pollinators, we wouldn't have a lot of the food we eat
Yeah,
or the beautiful flowers we enjoy. They're really important for a healthy ecosystem.
so true. So before we get to the next part, I have a question for you, the listener.
Okay.
What's one thing you've learned today about stinging insects that surprised you? Or maybe something that made you see them in a new light?
Yeah, let us know.
All right, so we've talked about all these different kinds of stinging insects, the venom, and even allergic reactions.
Yeah.
But let's get down to the nitty-gritty. What happens when you actually get stung?
Right.
The Critter Wrangler's website has some first aid tips.
Yeah.
And I'm definitely interested because my go-to move is usually just panic.
Well, panicking is a natural reaction.
Right.
But the most important thing is to stay calm.
Okay? Easier said than done.
I know, but Critter Wrangler says you need to remove the stinger as quickly as possible.
Okay, that makes sense. Get that thing out of me.
Right, because the longer it's in there, the more venom gets pumped into your body.
Okay, so how do I get it out? Tweezes, my fingers. I've heard all sorts of things.
Actually, they say not to use tweezers or your fingers.
Really?
Yeah, because if you squeeze the stinger, you could release more venom.
Oh, okay.
So they recommend gently scraping it out with something flat, like a credit card or your fingernail.
Okay, scrape it out. Got it. What about after that? Anything I could do for the pain and swelling?
Well, they recommend washing the area with soap and water to prevent infection,
Okay.
and then apply a cold compress to help with the swelling. You can also take some over-the-counter pain relievers if you need to.
Makes sense. So no miracle cures, but at least a solid plan.
What about those severe allergic reactions, though?
Right, anaphylaxis.
Yeah, that's serious stuff. What does Critter Wrangler say about that?
They say it's crucial to know if you're allergic and to always have an EpiPen with you if you are.
Right.
And of course, if you have a reaction, call 911 immediately.
Okay, no mess around with that. Get help right away. So we've covered stings and first aid. What about the nests themselves?
Right.
We know where they like to build them, but what if you actually find one on your property?
Well, again, Critter Wrangler says don't try to remove it yourself.
Okay.
Especially if it's an aggressive species like yellow jackets or hornets.
Yeah.
They have the proper equipment and training to handle it safely.
So no heroics, I can live in that. But what if the nest is in a really tricky spot?
Like inside a wall? Yeah, or up high in the eaves.
Well, they have special tools for that. They might use extension poles, dusters, even vacuums.
Okay, so they've got it covered.
Yeah, they can usually access those hard-to-reach places.
That's good to know. So what happens to the insects after they're removed?
Well, Critter Wranglers tries to relocate them whenever possible.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they'll take them to a suitable habitat away from people so they can survive but not pose a threat.
I love that. That's so much better than just, killing them.
Yeah, it's much more humane and it's better for the environment.
Which brings us to the whole eco-friendly thing. We've talked about it a lot, but what does that actually mean for pest control?
Well, it means they try to minimize their impact on the environment.
Okay,
So they use what's called integrated pest management, or IPM,
okay,
which basically means they focus on prevention monitoring and targeted treatments.
okay.
Pesticides are kind of a last resort.
So they're not just spraying everything with chemicals.
No, definitely not. They're taking a more holistic approach,
Right.
thinking about the whole ecosystem.
I like that. So it's not just about getting rid of the bugs, it's about finding a balance.
Exactly.
Okay, so I have to ask about those carpenters they have on staff.
Yeah, what's up with that?
Are they building little houses for the insects?
Not quite. They're there to make repairs to your house.
Okay,
Because sometimes the best way to prevent infestations is to seal up those entry points.
right.
So they might fix damaged siding seal cracks and crevices, basically make your home less attractive to stinging insects.
That's smart. So they're like a one-stop shop.
Kind of, yeah. They remove the nests, relocate the insects, and then make sure they don't come back.
Okay, so back to the insects themselves.
Okay.
We've focused a lot on the negatives.
Right, the stings.
Yeah, but Critter Wranglers talks a lot about their importance in the ecosystem.
Absolutely, especially bees. They're amazing pollinators.
Right, we need them for our food.
Exactly. Without bees, we wouldn't have a lot of the fruits, vegetables, and nuts that we eat.
So important. What about the other stinging insects, though?
Like wasps?
Yeah, do they do anything good?
Actually, yeah, a lot of them are predators.
Okay.
They eat other insects that can be pests, so they help keep those populations under control.
Oh, that's interesting. So they're like the natural pest control.
Yeah, they're part of the balance.
It's amazing how it all works together.
It really is. Even the creatures we might be afraid of have a role to play.
So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I want to leave you with a question to think about.
Okay.
Knowing what you know now about how important these insects are, how might you approach them differently in your own life?
Yeah, would you be less likely to swat at a bee?
Or maybe you'd think twice before spraying a nest.
It's all about finding that balance between protecting ourselves and respecting nature.
Absolutely. Well, we've covered a lot of ground today, from those spider-hunting mud daubers to the ecological importance of wasps.
Yeah, it's been a fascinating deep dive.
It really has. My whole view on stinging insects has definitely shifted.
Yeah, I think Critter Wranglers, they do a great job of explaining things.
They do. They make it so you can both understand and appreciate these creatures.
Yeah, and their website and YouTube channel are amazing.
They really are. There's so much information there. It's clear they're passionate about educating people.
Yeah, for sure. It's not just about getting rid of pests for them.
Right. It's about that harmony.
Yeah, finding that balance between humans and nature.
Exactly. And critter wranglers, they seem to have found the formula.
Yeah, they really do.
They know so much about these insects, and they're committed to those eco-friendly solutions.
It's impressive.
It is. They're not just exterminators. They're like educators, problem solvers.
Yeah, I like that.
It's not about dominating nature. It's about working with it.
Exactly, especially these days with all the environmental challenges we're facing.
Right. It's a good reminder that we're all connected.
Yeah, finding solutions that work for everyone. That's what's important.
Absolutely. So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with a few final thoughts. We've learned so much about stinging insects today, their behavior, their importance, it's all connected.
Yeah, we've talked about stings, allergic reactions, and even those humane removal methods.
Right. And we've seen that these creatures are not just pests.
They're vital parts of the ecosystem.
Exactly. So next time you see a bee buzzing around or a wasp checking things out, remember what we talked about.
Yeah, take a moment to appreciate them.
From a safe distance, of course, but appreciate their beauty and their role in nature.
And if you do have a stinging insects problem, remember there are companies like Critter Wranglers.
Right. They can help.
They'll find a solution that's safe for both you and the environment.
They're proof that we can live in harmony with nature, even those creatures that might make us a little nervous.
Exactly. Keep learning, keep exploring, and remember knowledge is power.
It can turn fear into fascination.
Until next time, happy buzzing.
Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.